Hello comic book fans out there! Many of you guys are aware that there was a really well written Young Justice cartoon that was done, and there was a comic book series that tied in along with it. But a lot of people are unaware that this series was based on an original comic book series by DC Comics by the same title. There was a lot of parallels between the two titles, but they were different universes. The original comic book series was conceived under the idea of Robin, Tim Drake, teaming up with Superboy. There was a story that took place called WF3, World's Finest 3, where Superboy and Robin teamed up officially for the first time. That wasn't really the beginning of Young Justice, that was just the first time they met. There's some people that debate whether or not that was the precursor to the Young Justice series. Later they teamed up with Impulse, aka Bart Allen. For this storyline it was called JLA World Without Grown-Ups. Clarion the Witch Boy had gotten rid of all of the adults in the world, and the teenage sidekicks, or the heroes that were teenagers, had to step up and sort of take charge. But continuing on from that storyline, these three characters started up their own team, which was Young Justice. As the series continued on, we had other members start to join them as well, including Cassie Sandsmark, who was the new Wonder Girl, Greta Hayes, who was a character by the known as Secret, and Sissy King Jones, who was known as Arrowette. She was similar to what Artemis was in the Young Justice cartoon, but she had her own origin. Artemis did exist in the DC universe, but she had a different characterization altogether. This was the main core cast for a while. We had some revolving characters here and there that came and went, as some of the characters that were part of the core had to leave for doing their own thing. We also had some other members that joined them full-time too, like Little Lobo, who was later replaced by a clone of himself called Slowbo. The Empress was another character that was brought in later on down the line, as was the Ray. The series definitely had a very lighthearted tone to it. There were serious points, and some of the specials and tie-ins that took place definitely had that very dark feel to it. But overall, the series in general was very fun. Peter David had a way of writing the characters where they bonded so closely together. They were more than just buddies and friends, they were brothers and sisters. And they would argue and fight with each other like siblings would fight, and it was hilarious watching it on panel. One of the things I think I liked the most about Young Justice was that during this time in the DC universe, we had the older superheroes who were part of the JSA. They had their own compatriots they could team up with. Then we had Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, who they joined up in the Justice League. Their first wave of sidekicks, which include Nightwing, Wonder Girl, who at this point was Donna Troy, and Kid Flash, who had graduated to become the Flash because there was only one Flash at this point, and that was Wally West, and they had the Titans. The youngest sidekicks, such as Tim Drake, Robin, Superboy, Wonder Girl, and Impulse, they didn't have a team, so this started up their first team together. And considering the ages of all the characters, I think the stories that they were involved in was beautifully done. All of the characters grew during the course of this comic book. Unfortunately, some of them grew more than others, and others were completely forgotten once the series was ended and the characters graduated on to become Teen Titans. Which that story, which was called Graduation Day, showed that that was the end of the fun-loving Young Justice series and starting up with a much more serious tone with the Teen Titans. This comic book was incredible. I have to say that I loved almost every single story that they produced, even the special tie-ins where Peter David wasn't involved in it. The Young Justice cartoon series started up at a different point in time during the DC universe, and it had a different lineup and different stories. For the most part, some of the characters were the same from the comic book series, and then later on in season 2, it was much more like the Young Justice comic book because there's a 5-year jump, and some of the newer sidekicks had now started up and joined the Young Justice team. And not to mention that Peter David came over and wrote some of the episodes as well, which you could definitely tell he had his hand in those because they paralleled some of the storylines that took place in the comic book. So obviously I'm a huge fan of this comic book series. I love the stories, I love the art. Todd Nauck, he is such an incredible artist. I also love each character and how they evolved as the series progressed. Unfortunately, it's not so easy to be able to go back and read all of the comic book issues that have come out during that time. This was during 1998 to 2003. Not everything was collected in trade paperback form. Today, you can't go more than 5 or 6 issues without a trade paperback coming out collecting all of those issues. But back then, that wasn't something that was done for every series. If you do look hard, you can find a lot of the trade paperbacks out there, or you can buy the individual issues. They're not that expensive. Anyways, that's all I can really say about this comic book series. The cartoon series is out on Netflix, and there is a possibility of a 3rd season to be done, which I'm really hopeful about. So if you have the means, I recommend reading the comic book series, but if you have Netflix, you can always watch the cartoon series instead. The first 2 seasons were great. They left off on a cliffhanger, and if enough people watch it on Netflix, there could be a 3rd season where they can finish everything up, which I'm really hopeful about. Especially being that it is one of the best superhero cartoon series ever done. It's just unfortunate that Cartoon Network and Warner Brothers treated them so incredibly unfairly. But I won't go into all those conspiracy theories about them only wanting boys families to be watching the show, where they didn't want to think too much about it, which is why they did Teen Titans Go, and the toys weren't selling and all this other stuff, so we'll just kind of leave it at that. But that's it for now. Thank you guys for watching me in this video. Be sure to check me out on my Patreon site, my website, and my social media sites, and everything else out there. Anyways, I'll join you guys for another review very soon. Peace.